Hey, Derek.
Hey Trey, here we go again.
Man, episode 43 of the Beyond the Curve DMX podcast. Supposedly there was a big game this weekend. There was the Super Bowl of motorsports, which is Supercross, being held in Glendale. There was a collab with a golfer and Troy Lee Designs and Red Bull. I mean, we are the sport. So let's discuss Glendale.
Yeah, it was a fun ride. I was anticipating this track for ever since they dropped the track map. It didn't claim as many people as I expected, but it still had some devastation to it. So
Yeah, and the hubbub on the internets is that maybe it didn't race as good as it looked.
it's too busy. I mean, they couldn't get overly fast. There was a rhythm section with what 16
Yeah,
jumps.
16
So
jumps.
I mean, it's hard to get a good speed going through something like that, and sand, two whoop sections. It's just a big floor plan, so it's kind of hard to get good racing. And I mean, even though it's a big floor plan, it's still a tight track. It's hard to get passing, so guys had to really plan out their passes and really a lot of thought went into the racing, so it kind of slowed everything down. And um, I don't know. I don't know if I was a fan of it. I was, like I said, I was really anticipating this weekend, but it just didn't. It didn't perform.
If you really paid attention to some of the nuances, there were some crafty passes, and then there was some crafty riding just with the fact of guys looking for traction when it got slippery. But yeah, the overall racing. But I have a question actually. I'd like to start the conversation off with everybody in all forms of racing. I don't care what form of racing, unless you do not have electronics, and I mean dartfish and ghosting and all that. Every form of racing now says, "Oh, the start is so important." Have we made it too hard to pass because we all know the best lines, we know everything, and I don't care what form of racing you're talking about. There is no passing anymore.
Hmm. I mean, in ours, there's still more passing than you would think, but it is. It's the tracks get so one lined. I mean, right this year so far, they've been so one lined that the passing that does get done. I mean, sometimes some of these bigger guys are letting people by just so they can see the line that the faster guy's taking. And um, I still think there's quite a bit of passing, but like this weekend there wasn't as much passing as the rest of them. And then plus we had two mutters, so
Yeah,
I guess there wasn't really much passing in that. But um, to answer your question as far as making it too hard, I don't really think that's the tracks themselves as much as the just the way the riders are riding. They're making it very one lined. Or um, the whoops though, like I think they're breaking down a lot that they almost can't ride them unless you're a fast guy. I mean, you
yeah.
can't get out of that main line in the whoop section where Jet can. You got a Jet that can pick the right or the left and actually blitz them. But let's put it this way: I think they're making it less privateer favorable.
Yeah, yeah, I can agree. I think also with some of the rules, I think Adam C. and Cirillo has touched on that. Some of the rules they've made. Daniel Blair touched on it this weekend. He's like, the whoops are just too easy. Two sets of whoops, and there was no separation in them.
Yeah.
There weren't guys. Now, there were guys going faster and slower in the whoops. Jet had a few good runs. But when you turn around and you look, and Malcolm Stewart is jumping through the whoops
Hmm.
and not losing time, that's not really his forte. And you know,
No, but it's a safer route. I mean, they are. There was a lot of talk on the whoops this year that they were going to cut them down to only 9 whoops, and
yeah.
there was a couple different talks about cutting whoops down just like that, and because they're all the injuries. But I, I mean, they must have tamed them to a point
Yeah.
where now I think they've gone too far. They've overcorrected. So
But apparently they're still tough because we do see riders struggle through them.
yeah. So this weekend, this track specifically, it's like I mean, my first glance at it, I meant to do a TikTok. I have all the videos, and I never got to put it out. But it's like they're trying to cut the privateers. That track was not for privateers at all.
What makes you say that?
Just the privateers don't have. I mean, I'm not speaking for all of them, but a lot of them don't have the ability to drive whoops like a Tomac or hit those big long rhythm sections.
Yeah.
Like Tomac or Sexton or Jet or anybody of that nature, they're on a different level. So when you get a rhythm section with 16 jumps all in one spot, I mean the privateers have a rough time, and they're going to be the ones that would crash more, even though that's not really how it was this
Yeah.
weekend.
No,
But
the funny thing I saw is there's so much talk about guys downsiding jumps. This weekend, if you looked at that long rhythm section, the last two triples, they were clipping on purpose to set up for the corner. And I'm like, who has that capability to do that over and over? The factory guys and guys with really high end suspension.
exactly. I mean, and that's
So I understand what you're saying. I wanted
yeah. So
a
like
better
the
understanding.
jump part, I mean, they're the guys that Rylan. Let's put him in for example. He's got good suspension. Billy Power Band's got him set up well, but it's not a kit,
Yeah.
factory suspension. So he's not able to do a lot of the things that these other guys can do, and
Yeah, the pockets were really tight this weekend.
just the going into that last triple, they would pop up and they would have to totally seat bounce to get up over the last one,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe the second to last one. I can't remember, but it's hard for somebody that comes in on a stock bike to do that.
Yeah.
Just the way that the tracks are laid out, the rest of them haven't been this bad. This one was a gnarly track.
Yeah. With over a minute lap time, you know you're in for a long night.
Yeah.
I mean, a week ago they did 29 laps in the main. This weekend they only did 20 in the 450
Mm-hmm.
main. So they were that's with 20 minutes plus a lap.
Yeah.
So they only did 20 laps.
Yeah. It was wild, but it's over with. It claimed some
Yeah, hope
souls with it, but
saw that DeFrancesco is going to be okay. They got quite a break, so he will be ready to go in Seattle.
mm-hmm.
Thrasher, I haven't gotten an update on. I saw an update, but I was busy actually doing my job, so I didn't get a chance to read the
Yeah,
update.
it's been a busy week, but
Um,
gonna
so we'll get into it. There was some interesting things that occurred. We had 2 red flags this weekend, which probably one almost helped one rider come back, and two, that same rider, it probably cost him. So, uh, it giveth and taketh away. Which also, before we get into that, restarts. I know there's rules on the restarts, whether it's a full gate restart. The most dangerous thing in racing motocross is the start. That is probably the most where there's everybody's the closest. I'm of the opinion not to dumb it down. I don't agree with start blocks and start aids and all that stuff. Once the race has started, I'm not opposed to just a staggered start.
no, I don't disagree with that. And we'll get into what entailed throughout the night because of starts. Poor Slade
Yeah.
with HBI. Like I said, we'll get into that. But yeah, the staggered. I mean, after the gate has already dropped. So right now, it's the leader must complete 3 laps, um, or it's a full restart. So I think that maybe after the first one full lap. So if you get a wreck like right off the bat,
Yeah.
then maybe a full restart, because that really isn't going to change a whole lot. But I don't know, man. Like I'm so up in the air about this
Because
that
the only series, and I'm thinking outside, the only series that has their standard restarts is NASCAR. They do the side by side for the excitement of the restarts are always exciting. And heck, now they have the choose rule, which you could be ninth and end up starting fourth because everybody wants to be on the inside and whatever. But Formula One, IndyCar, you pretty much you name the series, they Formula One starts basically like motocross, dead. Everybody together starts
yeah.
idle. IndyCar starts rolling, but then when there's a caution, it's one line, it's one lane. Um, Formula One's gone to a virtual safety car. I know we can't do that in motocross, but to take away some of that, Deegan was cost a race this year because of that rule at Budds Creek. This weekend, we saw a privateer probably lose his chance to make it into the main because of that rule. And I know it giveth and taketh away, but I just think they're all so fast off the start now.
I like the staggered restarts better, honestly. It's a more fair playing field, just because those guys earn those positions where they're at.
Yeah.
Like I said, if it's like one lap and under, a full restart is kind of justified in a way. I mean, you might have got a good start, but you haven't really earned your spot yet.
Yeah.
Where, you're up in the second and the third lap, you're now fighting for positions instead of, fighting through the crowd because of starts or whatever. So it's, like I said, I'm up in the air. Johnny Hopper did a thing on like starting on grates and whole shot devices and stuff like that.
Yeah.
In the press conference. So there's been a lot of talk on starts this year where it's not usually a big topic. And
well, now there's the mapping. You start on a grate, you start on blocks, so you have better leverage. It's the start now is it's almost electronic versus scientific and athletic. I mean, you still have to be able to drop the clutch and blah 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 blah.
I agree with starting on the grades because I know you've probably never done it. So
I've never started on a grate.
exactly. So it makes starting on grates is a level playing field. You're not packing gates. This guy didn't pack that gate better. So your starts are a level playing field. If you don't get a start, that's on you. Now, when it comes to Supercross, now we're working against factory bikes versus stock bikes. So that kind of takes the levelness out of it because those, I mean, if you look at the any of the bikes in general, honestly, any of the factory bikes, but especially the pro circuit bikes are now shooting.
Yeah.
I mean, they're rockets out of the hole. Where the privateer teams or like even like HBI, which I'm gonna get into their starts and their motor here in just a little bit when we start talking about that. But they don't the other satellite teams or not so much the satellite teams because they do have a lot of
Yeah.
they have a lot of help, but the privateer guys that don't have the technology to compete with that, I guess. So it's not really fair to them, but the grades kind of help that a little
Yeah.
bit.
Okay.
And then the mapping really doesn't have much to it does, but when you're on grates, like
yeah, but if I can hold my throttle and it's only going to go to 7K until I shift the second or third,
yeah,
that's a
plays
big
a big
difference.
part in it. But none of that really matters till after that back tire drops off of that grate.
Yeah.
Once it drops off that, because it doesn't matter what you do. I mean, you can tame the bikes down on the mapping or, make them scream. But as soon as it drops off of that grate, I know it's only like a 5 foot section. It's not a lot, but that 5 foot makes a big difference. Yeah. So if everybody has the same advantage right off the bat. I know we're kind of getting off topic of the starts, but it still starts in a way.
Yeah, it's all right. Hey, we are nobodies who watch with passion and discuss stuff, and this is how you get your start, and that's how those topics are discussed. Is they're being discussed. There's always changes. For God's sakes, they did the 450s again first this week, so I mean, there's always changes afoot.
Mm-hmm.
And really, if the rule gets set, it doesn't really matter if people like it or not. It becomes a rule, and that's what happens. And so, they have tie down devices basically. I mean, you can lock your bike down to where it's rubbing on the front fender these days.
Yeah.
So, there's always going to be a different way of doing it, and it's okay. But
new technology comes out every year, or they.
All right, that was our wild start there. Got
back on task.
So, although they did 450s again, just because I'm old and stubborn, we're going to talk about the 250s. We had co-leaders, co-red plates, and guess what? They were in opposing heats due to their qualifying. and we got to see Levi Kitchen first. And what did Levi Kitchen do? Levi Kitchen led all the laps.
This is where I'm talking about the pro circuit rocket off the start, because
Yeah.
that bike is a rocket right now. They've got. I know Mitch Payton at the beginning of the year said we've figured something out, and it's going to be game changing. And it so far it's proving itself. I think this last year they kind of struggled with the bikes a little bit.
Towards the end of the season, motocross, they started.
Yeah, just the and that's when they discovered this thing that, the secrets. But
Yeah.
obviously it's working. Levi Kitchen looks really well. He we trained with Cole Bradford this week, and out at the farm at Dade City, and he said he got to watch Kitchen throw in some heaters at Sandbox. He's like, dude, that kid is just phenomenal. So he's really breaking. I mean, he was good last year, but he's really breaking out of his shell, and he proved it in Heat 1. That's for sure.
Well, he got a gap, and then he just kind of maintained that gap. But that gap was to Carson Mumford. Carson Mumford kind of he had a breakout weekend
Yeah,
per
I
se.
was gonna bring him up. He had a really good ride,
Yeah.
all night long. It wasn't just a fluky thing. Like
Yeah, he had something happen in the main, which we'll discuss. I don't know what it was, but yeah, he was doing well in the main too.
yeah, but just throughout the night, it was his riding in general. He was
Yeah,
staying up there. He was competing with Kitchen, the top guys. I mean, it was hats off to him.
I don't want to, and I actually want to say congratulations to the much maligned and often discussed Smart Tops Moto Concepts team for having their 250 guys second and third in the heat.
Mm-hmm.
They catch that team catches a lot of heat for freeze,
Yeah.
which is kind of ironic that they catch a lot of heat for freeze. But um, yeah, good job in the heat race. They both, I guess, Mitchell Oldenburg, the freckle. I always go back to the fact that that guy was at one point just going to be putting in fences with his company in Texas, but he's now like riding pretty well, and they both did a good job. And my last kind of touch, well, actually, I had two. My last kind of touch was Julian Bomer. The kid's for real.
Oh yeah, he's no joke. Um, I think he's gonna get the good experience in him this year. I think he's really gonna break out at the end of the year, and then if he stays on this path, watch out for him next year, because he's um he's a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah. My last one in Heat One was Anthony Bourdon. The dude just keeps plugging away, making it straight in. He's an all star in like one of the fantasy leagues. He's just plugging away, so unheralded, and now they're forced to talk about him in the Supercross show.
Mm-hmm.
But that's all I had for Heat One. Anything for you?
No, that was it. It was a pretty cut and dry. I mean,
Yeah.
Kitchen ran away with it.
So if we go to Heat Two, the second red plate holder did what he needed to do.
Yeah,
He also got a gap and led all 7 laps.
he started his night off well.
Yes, yes.
We'll start with that. He rode well. I was unsure how the night was going to go between those two. Um, Jordan's been on a really good streak, but Kitchen's been on a really good streak. So they're both, they seem to get better every week.
Yeah.
I was actually pretty excited to watch that racing, but yeah, Jordan Smith takes away with it. Surprisingly, Joe Shimoda rode pretty consistently.
Yeah, it was. Well, we're 5 rounds into the West. It's about time for him to, hey,
Figure it out.
the pressure's off. Let's see what we can do. And
Maybe they figured something out in that off week.
well, there was a lot of discussion on the broadcast about them doing a lot of clutch research.
Yeah.
A lot of clutch research, and one, I didn't realize that you could do that much clutch research. And Ricky Carmichael even said, "Oh yeah, I tried a whole bunch of clutches," and I was like, "Okay, I thought you just kind of pulled it and it released." But
there's a lot of different,
yeah.
combinations.
Before we go too much further, this race did have a red flag because Nate Thrasher took a massive digger. He took a little chest contusion to the bars, which then ejected him over the top, and he looked like a bass fish flying through the
That
air.
that kid's having a tough year. I
Oh,
mean, we lost him last year. We're possibly losing him again.
yeah,
Um, he just can't catch a break. I don't know what actually happened to him. Obviously, I haven't heard. You
yeah,
haven't heard, but it looked like he either took out some ribs or sternum,
yeah.
something in the upper. Just the way he was sitting. I've broken enough ribs at a time to know how you sit when you break ribs, and it hurts.
It was the poor guy. It was a big hit before he left the bike, and then the opposite side of his body got a big hit when he landed.
Yeah.
And oh man, he came from way up there too. Like
Well, luckily he caught some soft dirt, so
true,
it could have been a lot worse. I'm not saying it wasn't bad to begin with, but um, there definitely could have been a broken back in there.
yeah, yeah,
Um, with a little, I mean, had he landed on the concrete or the plywood on the other side,
yeah.
I think tailbone, back, anything could have been possible. And I'm not saying that that's not what already happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
Been there, done that.
But once they got the race restarted, Jordan, Joe Shimoda, RJ Hampshire did not really give us. It didn't look. The anticipation of the evening didn't look like the heat race. Let's put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
He was just kind of there, and 5 seconds back, almost 6 seconds back at the finish, and it's just kind of he just kind of plowed through, got his, he's in the main, and
Yeah.
we'll move on. And um, I wanted to also give a shout out because he's kind of unheralded this year. Hunter Yoder with a fifth in the heat.
Hunter Yoder's been phenomenal this year.
For a guy who had some credentials, he's kind of been off the back, and I mean off the back in the minds of people. I don't mean off the back, but
Yeah.
great ride in the heat race.
No, I like the way he's riding. I've been watching him quite a bit. Just he's much higher than he was last year.
Yeah.
He was really fighting for LCQs last year, and whatever he did in the off season, it's it's really showing because he's pretty top tier usually. You know.
I say before we talk about this, we're going to transition from 250 Supercross Heat 2 to 250 Last Chance, because one rider, and I'm going to let you take the lead on this. One rider, poor guy, had the bad luck in Heat 2 and LCQ. So, would you take it over for the Slade Varola Compassion Series?
Yes. So our local HBI team. I mean, that was a tough night. That had to be heartbreaking for them.
Oh.
He was so close. I mean, so close in the heat. Worked his way. What he went down on the start.
Right at the start, that the really long rhythm section.
Yeah, right at the beginning.
I think he was so excited because that was a hell of a hole shot.
Yeah,
and he was riding it, and he just got a little off track.
And that's what I want to talk about, their motors. I'm going to get into that, but they're a hell of a break for him. He almost fights his way back, gets right up there, and then they run out of time. So I guess we can jump into the LCQ because we're already at that point. Yeah. So he fires out of the LCQ, and tough break again.
Yeah. There was a tough break for actually a couple of the guys, but him with the finish he got at the end. Before we go further, Matty Jorgensen was also up there, and that another red flag, chaos ensues.
And this is where, so for the LCQ, we only got a few minutes as it is. This is a long track. They didn't complete 3 laps, but there was only like a minute and something left on the clock. I think the rule, if you're going to keep the 3 laps by the leader rule, then that should pertain probably to main events or maybe heats that are a little bit longer, but LCQs that are already short, maybe it should go off the time left, instead of the laps or the time, because that screwed those guys terribly. On the bright side, he was literally right there at the end of the race.
Yeah.
I mean, he fought his way back. Unfortunately, it didn't work out. Which sucks because he was dominating that
it,
race.
it was crazy because twice he was just, well, there used to be a thing, you'd get the Racer X gas card or something if you were fifth in the LCQ, and if you just short, there used to be a column called just short, and he uh he was just short twice, and it's like, dude. But I want to say, I thought there was still a chance he was going to get in because we have a new wrecking ball,
Mm-hmm.
Blaine Silveria.
Oh yeah.
That dude was cleaning house, and I thought, you know what? There's a chance. There is a chance.
Well, I was watching him like a hawk, and I knew. I mean, he was right there. He was only a few seconds off, and there was enough time that it's always the top four that
Yeah,
are going. I mean, usually the top guy in the LCQ can keep it together. 2 through 4, it's always a cluster. I mean, don't want to
yeah,
get
yeah,
too,
yeah.
too crazy, but it's always a cluster. So I really expected, like you said, him to go down and or
Well,
clean himself and everybody else out with him.
he had already cleaned two guys out.
Yeah. So I figured you get a guy like that can't use his head. He's in a transfer position, but he sees third, so I'm
He's
gonna go for third.
he was so pumped up at the finish line. I mean,
Yeah,
Michelle and I were both like, it's so exciting to see, but dude, how many guys are just wanting to annihilate him?
yeah,
And but he was the reason I thought Slade might make it in.
yeah. Just from
Just
cleaning out the guy in
yeah,
front of him,
yeah. But
and
but
ended up taking them both out. But it was so close, and that's such a devastating night for those guys. But let's talk about their motor for a second. So we get a small privateer team like HBI who's coming up through the ranks to be able to pull hole shots. They got a great motor builder this year. They gave up their buying a semi for the team to build these motors, and they're working.
yeah,
These motors are working, and Slade starts this weekend really highlighted
yeah,
what the sense that it made to put their money into those motors instead of cosmetic stuff,
yeah,
because you don't have to run out of a semi. Yeah, it's preferred, but when you're able to make a judgment call where we're going to put our money into our motors, invest into our riders and not our pit presence. It speaks a lot for Matt and the whole HBI team, and their motors doing wonders. And I think Slade's going to rebound when West comes back, but tough break for him, man. I don't know how much more we can talk about it. It just
nah,
sucks. It's a terrible situation.
the pit in his gut and Matt's gut and Dylan's or whoever's there,
Everybody.
because to be just outside in the heat after a crash and in the LCQ after a crash. And by the way, he came back in the LCQ with no clutch lever.
And like knowing that you have that speed,
Yeah,
you went from the bottom of the LCQ, the bottom, and made it the whole way up to fifth, and you were that close to a transfer position,
yeah.
like within a second.
And I want to do. We would be remiss if we didn't say congratulations to Max Sanford for making it into the main, and the senior citizen motocross dream still lives.
Oh, Billy Lananovich, that was awesome.
It was really
He
cool.
he was pumped, and the guy's turning 41 years old.
Yeah,
You know, hats off to him for still being out there. I'm 30, and if I throw my leg over a bike, I'm in pain.
and it's just cool that, hey, I wonder, question, if I'm helping my kid chase the supercross dream, and a 41-year-old man who hasn't raced in a very long time. I think the quote that I saw was Billy Lanitovich raced his first Supercross 5 months after Max Sanford was born.
It's cool.
I mean,
Yeah.
so something of that nature. It could be backwards, one way or the other. But if I'm a parent and this gentleman is making mains and beating my son, do we reevaluate our financial output?
No. Yeah, that was a. It's not an every weekend thing. You're still there. I mean, I'm still. You're vested in your kid that's
Okay.
doing that. like I said, hats off to him for being out there just
Yeah,
grinding. He
yeah,
said that his fitness, he pretty much feels like his fitness is gone,
yeah,
and you can imagine how he felt at the end of the night
yeah.
because it had to be brutal, especially on that track. But I think his experience alone probably put him through just being able to ride a track of that nature, and um, I'm glad to see it though. He rocked it on Saturday.
Anything else? We should probably move on to more positive thoughts because we all feel bad for HBI. We're cheering so hard for them because we want them to succeed because we've had Matt at our table. Um, they're a nice group of guys, and we want to see success for them. So
Yeah, no, it's let's think more positive. It sucks. It's a terrible situation, and they're all still pretty down on it. But he's healthy. Live to fight another day, and I have a feeling they'll come back swinging.
all right, the main we
I
the
go to
wild child.
You want to go to the main, or you go to 450 heats?
Let's do the main. Let's do the
All
main and,
right.
and really dive into 450s. The wild child gave us the RJ experience, and he started third. Levi gets the whole shot. Jordan Smith is second, but then Jordan Smith gave us the RJ Hampshire experience.
Yeah, the entire main. Man, that tough break for him too. We're getting negative again, but
But the
God,
positive, he came back and finished well for the debacle he gave himself.
that entire main was terrible. Wreck after wreck, and a lot of them. I will say when he almost collided with Kitchen in the on the medical flag,
Oh yes.
that
Oh
there's nothing else he could have done.
no.
He couldn't see those lights. Kitchen did the right thing by slowing up, but luckily he didn't take them both out,
Yeah.
and luckily that's all he did was go off the edge of the track like that, because that probably could have been pretty nasty had he come and landed on Kitchen. So good heads up riding from Jordan Smith, but unfortunately that throws him on the ground
Yeah.
um, again and again and again. But he had the speed. I truly think that had he kept the bike up, I think he probably would have ran away with that race.
Yeah, he just seemed the speed. I mean, you crashed twice and finished fourth. There's something in your back pocket that you just didn't
Yeah,
let us see.
exactly. And he was there the whole time. He was ready for it. But congratulations to RJ for
Second
taking
win.
second win, the first one to take 2 wins.
Yeah.
I know they don't get as many races, but um,
And he tightened up the points.
yeah,
We actually have a three-way point battle now for 250s in the West.
yes,
But
it's pretty close. What 106, 102, 101. There for there for a little while, it wasn't looking so good for him,
no.
but he came out and got it done.
And what's funny is his only RJ moments were in practice. He rode a pretty smooth main. I
Yeah,
mean,
there was really
no,
not even really any close calls.
there was a couple. All of them had a couple wash saves
Yeah, the track
going
the
into
track was
corners.
slick.
Yeah,
You can't really much call that a close call because
no, no,
they were all
they
doing
all they
it.
all did it. But
Even the 450s, they were.
yeah, the only experience I saw was he did get a little buck wild in the whoops at one point. He like I was watching, they were watching from the back, and like everybody was going straight, and all of a sudden it was like right
Yeah,
through, and it was like, but that's normal for those guys as long
yeah,
as they can keep their foot in it, they're good. And
yeah. It's amazing what they can ride out of.
yeah,
Yeah,
I guess throttle is your savior. But how about we haven't even touched on him quietly? Yoshimoto gets on the box,
finally,
and I'm guessing Honda went, whew.
we we figured it out. No, he like I said earlier, he finally put it together. There was a lot of talk around him at the beginning of the year,
Yeah.
and he kind of lost all that talk because he turned himself into a sexton, and Maybe it was the bike, maybe it was him, but I think the off week really they something clicked.
Yeah, they found something for him on a dry track.
Yeah. So hopefully it stays that way. I think it's definitely a little bit late in the points for him to come back, but be cool to see him get a win with the new team.
You gave a shout out early on the podcast to Carson Mumford. We were talking about him and how he had a good night. At one point in the main, he was running fourth, and then he just disappeared. I don't know if he got swallowed up. I don't know if he had a crash. It was never talked about, but he ended up finishing 11th. It's not a bad night, but he must be so disappointed because he had a great heat race, was running in the top four, and then all of a sudden it just went bye bye.
Yeah, he still had a good start.
Yeah,
Maybe fatigue kicked in. I don't know
yeah,
because I don't couldn't have been anything too crazy. I mean, he's still just outside the top
yeah.
10, but the way he was riding all night and even the start in the main, I mean, he came out with authority. So whatever happened, obviously we didn't hear about it, but still a good ride out of him, regardless of the finish.
They don't give points for this award, but Garrett Marchbanks must think that you must get a bad start and pass more people, you get more points because he does it every
Man,
single
yeah, he
main.
sets himself up for some serious work.
Good
Like
lord, man.
I don't, I couldn't imagine fighting through the pack week after week after week. When you got the ability to be up there,
Yeah.
just figure the starts out. Maybe that's what he needs to do all week long is just work on starts or something because he's not coming out off the gate like the rest of these guys.
And I don't know if he goes by Julian or Juju, whichever one. That poor kid, I know he's young and he's he's up in I think he was in fifth. And all of a sudden it was like, here comes Marchbanks, here comes Oldenburg, and he just kind of like not got out of the way, but they helped him get out of the way, and then it was like, oh, I got to stay on the track. That's twice now that he's kind of, I won't say been pushed around, but kind of led astray from where he wants to be. And I'm guessing at some point there will be a conversation with Ian Harrison of, hey, you gotta use your elbow sometime, buddy, like
Yeah,
because you're fast. You just got to fight for it a little bit.
yeah, move him out of your way once in a
Yeah,
while.
because he got moved twice. He lost two spots, probably for one.
Sometimes you just have to be a Justin Barcia.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean that's part of racing, but and a tough night for Ryder D. Like you said, glad to hear he's okay.
What a great collaboration though with him and Ricky Fowler, the TLD team. That helmet looks sweet.
Mm-hmm.
The Puma design and the all the logos, the Ricky Fowler logos.
Yeah,
And for those that may not know, Ricky Fowler was a motorcycle racer when he was young. He got into golf early, but he never lost his motocross roots. And the fact that they were playing a professional golf tournament in Arizona, um, it was a great time to do that
and some
collab.
TLD gear. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was pretty cool.
Um, Last thing I want to touch on for me, congrats Hunter Yoder, a top 10. Um, Not bad. We talked about how he's kind of turned the corner, a top 10 for a privateer team that's getting some more funding, they're getting more help, but they are a privateer team. So great job. They go into a 5 week break with, I believe, unless there's carnage, Garrett Marchbanks is out of the running to win the
Mm-hmm.
title. I think the top three, it's whoever's going to win is going to win.
Yeah, I mean at this point, but we've seen crazy things,
Yeah,
so it's hard to tell. The 250s, it's a little bit harder to come back. Like we've said this 100 times and continue to say it. They get select amount of races to make it happen, and you got to make it happen from the beginning.
yeah.
And unfortunately, he's there, but he's not there enough to make it work. So 450 heat one.
450 heat one. I Should we have known that this was going to be a night for Ken Roxon?
It didn't show that way. It did, but the
I
way
mean, he
this
dominated the heat.
the way the season's been going for him, it's questionable. I never would have had him up there. Um, he looked great in the heat, come out slaying, and he did it. I mean, he did well in the heat. He did extremely well in qualifying. He looked good all night. Um, Led every lap in the heat. So I guess you could have put money on him.
Malcolm Stewart,
Malcolm Stewart was
welcome back.
that was a good ride out
It
of
was a
Malcolm.
good ride, very good ride.
Maybe his hair. I think his hair was just weighting him down a little bit too much.
Well, everything had a chance to dry out.
Yeah.
We've had a couple of dry races. It froze last weekend, which then crystallized all the stuff left over, and he was clean. But no, great heat race by Malcolm. That was actually not bad. I mean, minus the fact that you were over 8 seconds behind at the finish. Jet Lawrence, Chase Sexton, Dylan Ferrandis, they all went in directly, but I expected them ahead of Malcolm Stewart, Vince Freeze, Justin Cooper.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, Malcolm looked really good. Jet looked pretty good all night. I
Didn't he
actually
have a fall in the heat?
Jet.
Was that in the heat?
I can't even remember, but he did have a fall. Just nothing
Yeah,
crazy.
nothing.
He's been doing that a lot more lately, but you can tell he's after last week he put it all together. Finally got out of his own head. Um, but they all look good. Everybody, all Heat One looked pretty decent. There was no crazy carnage in Heat One.
For some reason, I highlighted Vince Freeze. I don't know if I just want to give him a congratulations for being fifth. I know,
And not taking anybody out in the process.
yeah, I know that Chase Sexton was riding with an injury on the clutch hand, and as much as these guys modulate with the clutch, that pull's got to be tough. The fact that he just kind of muscled through.
Yeah, it's unfortunately like I didn't even know about the hand injury. We raced this weekend, so but I didn't hear much on that hand injury before the race, and I wondered what was going on. And then we sit down Sunday, and I'm like that
Yeah.
explains a lot. Because I was kind of watching qualifying a little bit, and he didn't look like Sexton, so I wasn't sure what was going on. But yeah, that makes a lot more sense. But hats off to him for
Yeah.
fighting through it, because that's not a fun injury.
No. Anytime you guys are dealing with hand injuries, and part of your holding on is with hands and legs. If you're having problems in those areas, you've
No,
lost leverage.
especially the hands. I mean, both hands are working extensively
Yeah.
in any race. So, but clutch hand you can kind of get away with because you don't really have to use it
And another,
all too often.
yeah,
But
but they modulate so much at
yeah,
it. That's my last note for Heat One was, "Hey, good job, Benny Boss. Another main event straight in."
yeah, they're looking good on that bike. I think they after round one they got it their few issues figured out.
Yeah.
Um,
Have we heard any updates on Colt Nichols when he might make a return?
uh-uh. No, and the one thing I haven't really got an insight in, which I think I need to figure that out this week, is Ty Masterpool.
Yeah, it's very quiet.
Yeah. Um, Obviously it's probably not public.
Yeah.
Clearly it's not public, but see if we can get some insight on where Ty's at. I figured he'd be back by now.
So I don't know how often this happens. All four heats, whoever got the whole shot, won.
Yeah.
We go to Heat 2. The Cowboy, dude, the guy, I don't know if he has an agent. I don't know if they're doing marketing. I know now there's someone that gets to hold the cowboy hat. Like you can win that thing to hold the cowboy hat and be
Mm-hmm.
like his cowboy hat holder. I don't know what, but the dude is in Arizona and getting amazing applause.
That that stadium's a rup for him. I mean, perks of being a decent human being.
Yeah.
He's loved by everybody. I don't know anybody that hates Aaron Plessinger. He's a fantastic guy. We've met him quite a few times. Um, he'll go out of his way to talk to you. He's a pretty decent character, and obviously, at this point, AP is probably the fan favorite.
Yeah.
Um,
I can't disagree with that.
but he come flying. He come out flying in Heat 2, and he's he's looking good this year. Like I don't obviously I think at this point it's too late for him for any kind of championship, but you never say never.
No, no.
Um,
That we look at second and third, probably the person who had the quietest night with the least fanfare was Jason Anderson. Comes out second in his heat, actually kind of maintained the gap from first to second, maintained it.
yeah,
Uh, never was pressured in third. by Eli.
Yeah, I didn't mean to say AP. Too late for him in the champion. I meant Roxon
Oh,
as far as the
yeah, yeah,
championship wise. But no, it's Heat 2 looked good. A little more stacked in Heat 2, I
yeah,
think. You
yeah.
know, for the way the night went. Yeah, AP Anderson is breaking out of his shell a little bit.
But he's just quietly putting together a decent season.
And that's what he does. Like he's like another Webb. He's real, silent but deadly.
Yeah.
He, when he gets in fights though, it's like I don't want to say fights, but disagreements in the sport. It always like blows up, but then it'll get real quiet again, and there he is. That's just how Anderson operates. Like I said, it's just like a web.
And none of that stuff really affects him because he just does his thing.
Yeah, Anderson is he's like his own breed. He's always been like that. Always been a really good rider, and I think that if the season keeps going the way it is for him, he's going to be right there the rest of the season. I know, like last year was a pretty rough one.
Yeah.
Um, but he gets these seasons where they just click. And it seems to be like every other season, every few seasons. But when he's on, he's on.
I wonder, there is talk of him when Triumph introduces our 450 for him to go back and give that a go with Bobby and
Mm-hmm.
Scuba and the guys that he kind of loved, who helped him when he was coming up.
Yeah.
I wonder if this is just kind of like, hey, I'm gonna improve my market value. I'm gonna have fun. I'm gonna ride this thing out, and you know,
Yeah. It's hard to tell with him because
yeah.
like I said, it's always so quiet. He just kind of does his thing. So he seems. I don't know how him and the team collaborate, but he seems to be doing well. They finally got it all together for him, and I guess we'll see what happens.
Eli in third. Hunter Lawrence was coming for third uh, after Eli, but ran out of time. Still, Eli got him by a second, but that might be one of the best heat races for Hunter this season.
Yeah, the whole night, good ride for Hunter.
Yeah, very good ride.
Something looked different with Hunter this week. He hasn't been there. I know probably the 450 switch has been a whole different feeling for him, but it was working this weekend. Whatever he was doing, he looked really good all night long.
Cooper Webb had a post. He was not happy with his riding. It is so weird to me that last week in Detroit how good he looked, and this weekend how invisible he was.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, sixth and a fifth in a heat. That's his time. Like he came out so hot in Detroit, and then this weekend track's a little slipperier. It's not. It's harder to turn down. What's funny though is he and Tomac were both turning down. Like
Yeah,
they were both turning down pretty extensively, but I don't know what that's the psyche technology or whatever I don't understand is like how you can look so good one weekend on a similar track, but this one was drier, less ruddy, and then this week all of a sudden you just bust out a fifth. Like no big deal, just a fifth in the heat.
mm-hmm. Yeah. It's Cooper Webb's. It's always hard to tell because he's so silent. Just like Anderson. Uh, when he struggles though, he struggles, and
But
it's so hard to say that about the same thing like with Tomac because it's not normally that way with Tomac. But he's Tomac's definitely struggling this year trying to put it all back together. But I think also I've said before that everybody else is getting that much
yeah,
faster. So
I agree.
um,
But I think we look at Cooper and he's in fifth, and we're like, okay, cool, he got a fifth in the heat, no big deal. He doesn't even care about qualifying that much. He's going to come out. The main is he's going to be fine in the main.
mm-hmm.
Like it's Cooper Webb. He's going to figure it out. Mr. Invisible this year to me is Justin Marcia. He's getting in every
I
main
actually listened to. I didn't listen to it. I read about he's having a lot of struggles with the bike.
because they changed frames
The
this year.
24 is
Yeah.
new. He's just they can't figure the bike out. He cannot get nothing that they do makes that bike feel comfortable. Um, so unfortunately, same team but new bike that takes a
Yeah.
toll. If you can't get that comfortability down, then it's a rough season. And and so he was saying that there's literally nothing that makes that bike feel comfortable. So I don't know that we're going to get any kind of results out of him this year. If that's how you're feeling, and we're already 5-6 races in.
That's tough. It's a tough go because he is fun. We know he's on the backside of his career. You kind of like him to have a little more flair and pizzazz, just to let's go out with a flourish, And,
Mm-hmm.
and right now he's, like I said, he's most of the time just invisible. He's making it in,
Yeah,
but there's just no.
yeah, he's always going to be there.
Yeah,
Unless something happens, he'll easily make it through. He's still Justin Barcia. It doesn't matter how bad that bike is. He's still a top tier rider. I mean, uh, there's not a lot of guys that can just throw a bike like he does. It doesn't even have to look smooth. He'll just throw it all over God's creation.
I'm not even going to talk about Craig. He made it in
He did.
8th in a heat race. I figured technical riding. He was good on these kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
This was going to be his night to maybe pull a Mookie, maybe a 4th, 5th in a heat. He was 8th.
He's just there. Real quiet. Not real. Not a lot of good results, but he's there.
And I'm not digging on him.
No, I love Chris Craig.
I believe he is so pissed off, and the struggle for him right now is real. Whether it's bike, him, personnel, something, there is
at this point mind games because
Yeah.
I mean you know it's got to be weighing extremely heavy.
It's his livelihood.
Yeah, just the performance from start to finish at this point has not been great.
No.
And you know that mindset starts weighing down on you, that maybe I'm not good enough. Bike problems, like you said, personnel. God only knows what's going on because we haven't heard anything
No.
about his results at all.
Minus the onesie stuff, that was his biggest thing of the year.
Yeah, I mean that's really all they centered around him. I see more about him on his wife through his wife on TikTok.
Yeah.
But as far as actual media coverage, it's just not there.
Yeah, maybe he's not gelling with the Alden program. And I'm not critiquing because people do and people don't, and maybe he.
Yeah, that's always been a big thing.
Yeah.
That either it works for some, but it doesn't
Yeah.
work for others. I mean, it's not a straightforward program that's everybody jives with it.
Some things click with Aaron Plessinger and
Yeah.
Alden Baker.
It's all personality.
RJ, it's stuff clicks,
Mhm.
and it is what it is. But anything else for Heat 2?
No.
So we had 4. Whoever got the whole shot won the heat. Cool. The most fun race of the evening, or as you guys that don't speak proper English say, the funnest race of the evening, was the 450 LCQ.
That was a pretty good one.
Welcome back, Justin Starling.
That was wild. But our Suzuki boys come out, Chiz and McElrath, just did their thing.
Which they should.
Yeah, there's no reason that they shouldn't be where they're at.
When you're a 2-digit permanent number.
And those two are very long-term vets of the sport.
Yeah.
They do a lot with the sport outside of riding, so they're very, very knowledgeable. They should just easily be cruising through that.
Yeah, and as we touched on, I think in a previous podcast, they gave a huge, huge amount of kudos to Chisholm for his setup of the Roxon bike.
Yeah.
This weekend. So we've known that Chiz's job on that team, yes, he's still racing, but his job is
test pilot.
Oh yeah, make that bike work.
Yep. Yeah, he's Chiz's test pilot. I've got to watch him ride at like Dade City and stuff, and talk to him a little bit. He's like I said, he's a long-term vet of the sport.
The suspension guy that they used was Chiz's suspension guy.
Yeah,
that's who they're now using as the team.
Yeah, he's a vital role.
Yeah.
in that team. Anywhere he goes, he's a vital part of the team.
He's just a steady.
But he's still out there digging. He's one of those guys that just can't give it up.
No, and congratulations to Freddie Noren. The guy, where did he finish in his heat? I don't even know. The guy doesn't qualify well sometimes. He's just plugging away. Freddie, no, I don't even see him. Dadgummit. Cover for a second while I look. Oh, he was 12th in the heat. And he just comes out, plugs away. But the excitement. Cade Clayson is in 4th. He's and he's there. And I'm like, okay. Or I don't even think he was in 4th. Yeah, it was 4th. Starling, first race back. He even said after this heat race, he went on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, and said, dude, my arms blew up so bad. He comes out in the LCQ, and it's like, okay, he's coming.
there.
He's there. Okay, cool. He's riding. Clayson, I like you. You are a nice guy. Why in the world did you roll the outside of that berm in the LCQ, not thinking that you're not going to get taken out? Some on the brakes, cut down. I don't know. That's twice, 2 weeks in a row that Clayson has been the brunt of an LCQ fiasco.
Yeah, and then he's just destroying his night.
Yes.
I mean, I can't imagine the frustration after
Oh,
the first one, let alone 2. Then you get Starling's finally in that spot.
but how bad must you feel that you get taken out and then the dude that takes you out can't hold it?
Yeah, he comes in. I mean, he looked okay. He's riding, and then it just.
I think he just blew up.
Yeah, it just looked terrible. But to finally feel like you're right there, you couple minutes. All you got to do is hold it for a couple minutes, and he just couldn't get it done.
No. And I feel bad because I guess he took a lot of heat on social media about what he did to Cade.
Yeah.
First of all, what he did to Cade happens in every LCQ.
It's the LCQ.
Happens. But it's also, Cade is a really good rider, a really smart rider.
He should have known better.
Dude, you are rolling the outside of the berm with a guy that's both of you trying to make paper so that you can eat. I'm sorry, you got to know. But it sucks even more that Starling happens and then probably blows himself up and can't do it.
Yeah.
When guys from Moto America are coming to defend you on social media, your reach is a little more than just the Supercross world. And I appreciate that people are like, dude, you got to do what you got to do. Like, I mean, he didn't clean him out. He just rolled him up like the berm. And
it's an LCQ. It's racing. Yeah. I mean, the boxing gloves go on in the LCQ. Has there even really been many penalties in an LCQ? No. Not that I can think of. Like, they literally, I think the AMA even considers it, all bets off.
It's like winner
takes all.
Yeah, it's like the table breaking matches. And I mean, for God's sakes, in the LCQs, we've seen guys ride the wrong way on the track and not get penalized.
Yeah, like that's the cage fighting.
Yeah.
We pay attention to the serious stuff, the heats, the mains. Those are highly regulated. And then there's the outlaw class.
I mean, and we don't want anybody to get hurt or anything. But I think the funniest part is just Cade getting knocked over, Starling acquiring that spot, and you're like, okay, Starling's going to bring this home. I mean, he's getting support from Honda. He's got a good program. Oh, he hasn't raced really, and he just. And the beneficiary to all that was Devin Simonson making the main and getting in. Congratulations!
Boy, was he happy.
Oh, yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, to be more serious, like, these guys are literally fighting for this week's meals. I mean, they're this is what they do for a living. There's no way around it. So Clayson knows that, and Justin knows that. Like, just ride smarter. I mean, Justin rode well. Clayson, though, like, you should have been smarter.
Yeah, I don't disagree, and I want to give a quick shout out Theodore Pauly for all of us who are in motocross. It's Bubba Pauly. He was only 17th in the LCQ. The guy's missing part of a thumb, but he is madparts.com for MX for Christ, Galaxy Kawasaki. That is his team that he's helping other guys chase their dream. He's out there riding, but like, he's running this team on top of that.
This is while riding, yeah.
And they have a presence. They have a pit presence. They have,
and I think that's cool.
Yeah.
Like, it's just prime way to set an example.
And he's still out there doing it, but his main focus is he's becoming the Dustin Pipes. Dustin was one of those guys that started a team before he ever quit, and then Theodore Bubba is doing the same thing. So the LCQ was was what it was. Congratulations to McElrath and Chiz for Hep had all three guys in, and what a great night for the team.
That was
So
a good show. I mean, they put on the show of the night.
yeah,
For a night that wasn't overly action packed. It's always the restarts. Like it just drags the race out.
yeah.
It kind of obviously never loses my interest, but it's hard to keep the interest when it's constant restarts and crashes. And I kind of expected it for the night. Like I said, I expected carnage all night long, and in a way we got it, but it was not as bad as I expected. But
If you are a random person that's never been to a professional supercross race, I don't know why a random person would ever even see this, but if you are, do me a favor. Do not get up during the LCQs. Just stay seated.
no, and it drives me nuts that they're always put off.
Yeah.
Because that's like you said, that's the cage matches. You should be there for the LCQ.
These are the guys that you see in the vans, that you see like heating up their mills on griddles.
Mm-hmm.
They're the ones that are like putting out a lot of the social content because that's how they're getting to each race. These they are fun,
And occasionally you see some of the big guys in there too.
well, this year the first four we saw
Yeah,
one every
yeah,
every LCQ, but the show of the night, the Ken Roxon show.
yeah. I mean, he come out and dominated. Like I said, wasn't really expecting it. I guess it kind of should have because he was clean all night. I
He
mean,
won. He won the main by almost as much as he won the heat,
yeah,
and he had a perfect night. He led 27 laps. The 450 class ran a total with heats and mains 27 laps, and he led all of them.
yep,
Two whole shots, 27 laps led. That's a perfect night.
yeah. And there was no mistakes.
Oh,
I mean, just smooth, consistent, and of course they threw out the kickstart Kenny.
twice.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to punch my TV when they said that because I'm just over it. But extremely Kenny like. When Kenny's on, and he definitely proved that.
I felt, and it could be for TV, it could be an act. I don't know. He's well managed. His appreciation for this victory was seen and heard Saturday night,
Mm-hmm.
talking about how hard it is to even get on the box and how these wins are becoming far and few between. And this one meant a lot. And
Yeah, he's at the stage of his career where, it's now downhill.
yeah,
And I don't see him going anywhere anytime real soon, but it's fastly approaching.
they've
So
got they've got something good going.
yeah, and when he gets a win, it's always an emotional roller coaster, and I love seeing it. I like seeing Kenny win. Period.
I think the SMX thing. I don't know if we'll see him do 11 rounds of motocross, but he won't have to. He's already gonna point in.
Yeah,
I think the SMX showed him. Hmm, I might hang around because if I do good in Supercross, go dabble in some motocross, keep some points. We go to this SMX thing, I can win that thing,
mm-hmm.
and I think we might get to see him for a couple more years because of that creation.
Yeah.
And we don't know what that SMX is going to turn into. Are we going to take a round away from Supercross and another round away from motocross and have 5 rounds of SMX? Like, we don't know what that's going to look like.
It's going to evolve over the years, but I think it's going to change. I mean, obviously, a lot of these factory teams, the big factory riders, are kind of almost forced to run
Yeah.
all the rounds. But you get a lot of these older guys that they decipher what they want to do, and most of them just want to race Supercross because that's where the passion's at. There's nothing like stadium racing. Outdoors are nothing like Supercross.
And
But
most of the time, it's cleaner.
yeah, and they like now that we got the SMX, they get to have it's much more fun. Like outdoors is just like you said, dirty and brutal, and you're always racing in the hot summer heat. And there's really never any cold
Yeah.
outdoor races. Very occasionally, um, not really fighting the elements in Supercross like you are motocross, and I think it's definitely leading to a point where these guys can now, as long as they can get in Supercross, they can pick and choose,
Mm-hmm.
what they want to run. So kind of, but it also gives the opportunity for more privateers to come in into the motocross scene and also make it into the
Yes.
SMX world. So
Yes.
I, I think it's honestly, I think it's going to be a good thing evolving through the years.
Quiet night. Again, we talked about it in the heat. Jason Anderson. I don't know if he got 10 seconds of airtime in the main, and he was second.
Yeah, it was very quiet.
Just, I mean, it's a Monster Energy Supercross. You got a Monster Energy Kawasaki, and I don't know if I saw him for 10 seconds.
Yeah, and we lost Plessinger. Just was on he, running a good night and then did not end up in a good night for him. Yeah, Sexton battling his hand. Uh, Definitely not a.
Well, Plessinger, didn't he have the little ice skating mishap in the
Yeah,
corner? Yeah,
Plessinger lost his front end.
yeah.
Because he was right there with Kenny, and I think it would have been a good race. Honestly, the way that they both were riding all night, that they were probably pretty close to each other. I think we would have had a fun race, but and as well as Aaron's looking this year, it's you get Kenny out there. It's kind of hard to compete with that.
And they're both clean. I think, I don't know. But hey, was there a lot of pressure on Plessinger to push and try to get the lead? And, we don't know. Or did he just make a mistake? It's just a
It
mistake. Those
happens.
guys
I
are
mean,
so good.
and the
And
track was slick.
yeah,
It happened to the best. Um, those corners were claiming a lot of people and almost claiming a lot of people. Like we talked at the beginning, you can't even count that as a. It's a mistake, but it was happening to everybody.
yeah.
Yeah, some people were just able to keep it up better than others.
Eli Tomac, I thought, okay, we had that, whatever. I mean, I love the fact this week that there have been arguments. It was a shock. No, it was arm pump. It was the factory said, or Star says, no, it was not the shock. Some people are saying, yeah, it was a shock.
Yeah,
And no, it was arm pump. Eli's like, I just didn't feel good.
yeah, yeah. I mean, Eli's brutally honest. So when Jet started coming for him, I kind of knew that like he, I thought it might be a race, but he's not going to be able to keep up. He's not going to be able to hold off Jet's always on a mission, and I truthfully do think that Eli let him by to see where he's making up time
Yeah.
because it looked that way. He didn't fight for it,
I wonder if
and
some of that same feeling was happening this weekend.
and that's what I mean this weekend. So in a smart, I think from a smart veteran standpoint of Eli, it was a smart move if that's actually what happened to let Jet by, see where Jet's making up all his time because he was making up a serious amount of time,
Mm-hmm.
and he was way faster than Tomac. So
There was no contest when it happened.
no, and you got that kind of experience, you think he would have enough in him to watch all that and then maybe make it back, but I just with whatever he's struggling with, he wasn't able to pull that time back, but
And I think another lap, I think Hunter would have had
yeah.
his.
Hunter was looking good. I
Well,
mean,
he had a great night. I think it's his best finish. I think it's his best finish.
I think it's really to me that was his best night. Period.
And he was coming. He was coming too.
Yeah, just looks. Even if it was his best finish or not, it was still. I'm pretty sure it was his best finish because he's been down there.
Yeah.
He's been looking rough, and that it was just Glendale was a pretty smooth ride for him.
May I just also shout out Dylan Ferrandis and his Dunlop tires? Dylan Ferrandis and his Pirelli tires were finishing in the same position that Dylan Ferrandis and his Dunlop tires are finishing.
Yeah,
I'm just saying, it's tough for me to let that go, and I just think, like, what did you cost that team to do that, to make that change?
I'm sure it wasn't pretty.
So, the silent assassin did not assassinate anybody Saturday night.
No, it was pretty quiet. Nothing, nothing even real positive. It just
He just rode. Yeah,
yeah.
just rode. We already touched Malcolm Stewart, top 10. Hey, we'll take it. He had a great heat race. That's actually not a bad place for him.
No, and you finished over Sexton and Plessinger, so
We'll take
Can't
it.
can't really complain.
I mean, he finished 2 spots in his current point standing, so I mean that's good. Christian Craig got a 12th. Is that his best finish of the year?
I truthfully don't know.
I
He's
mean,
been
he's 15th in points,
he's had a pretty rough go.
so I don't know. I mean, I just I feel so badly for the guy because I don't know where he maybe a Dylan Frandis and Justin Cooper, but I'm maybe top 10 is where I see him, but I know but yeah, it's got to get better. But man, congratulations to Hunter Lawrence on a great showing. Ken Roxon, dude, that was smooth,
Hmm.
just smooth.
I mean, he showed up and did what Kenny does. If Kenny can get out front, he's kind of hard to stop.
Did you hear the crowd the last lap as he was coming? Like the
Oh yeah,
crowd was just. I was like, wow. For a second, I thought something had happened. That
no,
off
just
screen.
between him and Aaron both. I
Yeah.
mean, it's that I couldn't imagine how deafening it would be in there with them. He's he's definitely another fan favorite. Him and Aaron both are just pretty pretty close. I mean, Aaron knows how to
Yeah.
erupt a stadium,
You
but
just go woo, and
yeah,
the crowd goes crazy.
yeah,
Do it for Dale.
he's something else.
His Western accent is really getting even. He must practice that.
I think it's just natural now.
Oh,
He
is it
he
this
talks it
thing?
so much, it's natural.
I mean, he has more of an accent than Kenny has a German accent.
Yeah, Kenny's German accent is pretty much gone at this point.
Yeah,
He's been over here for so long, but now it was a good night of racing overall. Um, we're gonna go into Arlington, get a week off, go into Arlington, and see what happens.
week off. Does the week off help the points leader or the people who are having problems?
I don't know. I guess it really depends on what they're working on, and sometimes it can actually hurt the guys that are doing well. Um, they'll go in and start messing with bike settings, and sometimes they'll come in off from an off week, and the bike's just way out of whack, and it's like they start from scratch again. So I'm anxious to see what happens, during the off week, and but hopefully some of these guys that are struggling, they can figure out some things, and the things that like Joe Shimoda, for example, that they have figured out. Hopefully they can excel and really come back swinging.
Because on the 450 side, we went Detroit to Glendale. We're going to Arlington. I'm guessing the dirt. There was a time that the Dallas Supercross was very Glendale-ish. I'm guessing it's going to be somewhere in the middle of Detroit and Arlington. There's will be
Yeah,
some traction. There'll be a little slipperiness, and there'll be some ruts, but not as dry as Glendale. I'm guessing if looking at history.
yeah. Well, I mean, I guess we'll see.
Yeah,
Maybe it change up a little bit, but it'll be fun. It's a tight series this year, and I'm excited to see what we end up with next because we keep getting different winners. So
yeah.
it's a wild ride, this one.
They average 4.6 winners per year, and they've already had 5, right?
Yeah.
So 1 2 time winner. So they've already broken the average, but we'll see what happens. I mean, we still anticipating a Tomac. Can Jason Anderson get a win?
Let's see. I was gonna say I'm gonna put my money on the next win is Anderson because he's right there. I'm not giving Tomac a win. He's not
He's not there.
he's not there. Something that's not jiving. He might get a win by the end of the year, but he's not at that point yet. I don't think.
He could point his way to a Triple Crown.
Yeah, I think the podiums are probably about Tomac right now, but getting a full win, it's going to be a tough one. I mean, competition's stiff, and he's not driving with his bike or not driving with his body or
Yeah.
whatever's going on. So um, we'll see what happens.
All right. Before we leave, we had Dade City round 2. How'd it go?
It's good. Our PW class, Bowen was on absolute rails. We got quite a bit of compliments of how fast he was riding. Looked really well. I want to give a shout out to Axiom Performance. They just built us a brand new powerhouse for the PW. It's on its way back now. He's doing some new things with his motors, so anybody check out Axiom Performance. He's doing some things that the big guys aren't. Can't wait to try this motor out and see what happens. But we came out with a third overall, racing some fast kids. Our mini e-bike class, we was doing really well. Had a pretty big get off in the back corner. Was track got really ruddy. So he had a pretty rough get off in Moto 2 when he got a good start finally. We worked on starts last week with Cole Bradford from HBI. Um, so our starts improved, and it was a pretty good night overall. Had we not wrecked, I think it would have been a better night. But like I said, the PW was great, running really fast. Caleb Groves was out with us, got back on a bike, looking really smooth. So
Any updates on his future?
working on it.
Okay.
We got some things in the future right now, so we're working on a lot of things with Caleb and trying to get him to that next level. Um, right now, it's kind of a bike thing, not to get too public, but if we can get him on I'd like to see him on a 450 and a 250, and then start working on some of the Supercross stuff and the pro stuff. Um, but we got a lot of things coming with him in the future, and I think they're going to be pretty promising. But we got a few weeks off for the Pasco County Fair, so um, we're gonna get our motor here and get some bikes figured out, and we got some new sponsors coming in. We've lined up quite a few sponsors this year, which is phenomenal. Just talk to some more tonight, so get these bikes with some graphics on again. Right now, we're just running some plain old numbers on a stock bike, but it's looking to be a good year.
Awesome. Well, there is no Supercross next week. There's no Dade City next week. What are we going to talk about? Are we going to take the week off?
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
We'll figure out something. We'll be here next Monday.
I'll get us a guest.
We'll talk about something.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this has been episode 43. That was the discussion about the Glendale Supercross and Dade City Round 2. That is Derek Schaefer with DBS Handyman Services and Custom Fabrication. I am Trey Heath with Michelle and Trey Real Estate. We are the Beyond the Curve, the MX podcast, and we will talk to you next week. Bye-bye.
See ya.